All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me for Person-Centered Services Let's Get Organized training. We're going to discuss tips and tricks for having your child's records at your fingertips. My name is Kristi Moscato. I am the Community Relations Manager for the Western 8 counties that Person-Centered Services covers. And, in a bit, you'll see a slide that really kind of identifies what area we cover, and you'll learn a little bit more about me in just a minute. So at Person-Centered Services, whether we are doing a training internally or externally, we always begin with our mission, vision, and core values. So our mission, we connect people to the care, support, and opportunities that maximize their quality of life. A vision, we're a community where all people lead fulfilling lives with our core values of people, integrity, and trust. So now a little bit about me. These are pictures of my kids. Prior to coming to Person-Centered Services a little more than a year and a half ago, I worked for the Parent Network of Western New York for 10 years. And they are an amazing resource covering the 8 counties of Western New York, and really taught me a lot about how to advocate for my daughter and what I needed to learn to be her best advocate, and then in turn, teach her to advocate for herself. So I always like to share to personalize any training I do with, these are my kids. We adopted our daughter Zoe when I was 5 months pregnant with my son Jonah. Zoe was born with developmental disabilities, and she also has a few mental health diagnoses currently. Both my kids are juniors in high school, so time has flown the last 17 years. They're both 17, and they're both graduating high school in 2025. So it's been a whirlwind of 17 years for our family. And, my son Jonah is typically developing, and he's a baseball player, as you can see there. He's actually playing a game right now in the rain. But Zoe is the reason why I do the work that I do and why I'm so passionate about the work that I do. I just want to help families help their kids, be the best version of themselves and lead their most fulfilling life that they can. Just real quickly, how Person-Centered Services got here. Back in 2018, a transition happened. You may remember Medicaid Service Coordination or Medicaid Service Coordinators, or MSCs as they were called. Back in the day, my daughter's initial care coordinator was an MSC. And then in July of 2018, OPWDD transitioned from traditional Medicaid Service Coordination to health home care coordination. Person-Centered Services is one of 7 health home care coordination organizations in the state, but we are a health home specifically for people with intellectual and or developmental disabilities. So this transition was part of the Medicaid redesign plan by the state, with the aim of preparing the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or OPWDD. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that acronym, and their service delivery system for the overall transition to managed care and to ensure conflict-free care management. Since then, since July of 2018, we have grown to over 780 employees, and we service over 17,600 people with disabilities. This visual just gives you a good picture of where we are. The green is our service area. And then this next slide shows you how we're divided up east and west. So I'm the Community Relations Manager in the west, and my counterpart is Amy Albanese, and she covers the eastern 10 counties in the blue, to just give you a visual for that. Our agenda tonight, we're going to discuss the importance of keeping records safe, talk about some tips and tricks for organization, discuss various types of organization, the importance of keeping documents current, do a little bit of resource sharing, and then talk about next steps. What are your next steps going to be? And I want to get started with a little video that I got from understood.org. Amy is going to put a link to understood.org in the chat. They have a lot of great resources. A lot of the documents that Amy will also be uploading into the chat are from Understood, to just give you an idea of ways to keep things organized in your binder and keep track of different things. I couldn't attach everything I wanted to attach just because of our security on our back end with our IT department. But I really encourage you to go to their website and utilize all the tips and tricks that they have on there for creating a binder, but also for a wide array of things. You can type in ADHD and everything they have on ADHD will pop up. But we're just going to watch a brief little video to get us in the right mindset. Now, one thing I did want to mention is Amy will be putting, like we said, several documents in the chat. If you are unable to download and print, don't worry about it. At the end of the training, you'll be given my contact information. You can shoot me a quick email with your name and address, and I will mail you all the handouts that are being shared tonight. So don't stress about it if you can't download and print. I will take care of you. So now I want to get us continue to keep us in the right mindset. I want you to just start thinking about a couple of things, and I want you to utilize the chat for this. If you're thinking about your child's current IEP or 504 plan, do you know right where it is? Is it in your house somewhere, or do you have to call and get copies? Just put your responses in the chat. Yeah, in the living room somewhere. Yeah. Awesome, Linda. So see, we're getting a few different answers to that. What about your child's latest physical or their medical records? Do you know right where they are? Are they in your house somewhere, or you have to call and get copies? And thank you for participating in the chat. I really appreciate it. This is a new platform for us, so I'm not fully comfortable using the poll feature in this yet. Probably with the IEP papers, awesome. So that just is to, kind of get you involved here, and let's start thinking about organization. Now, we're going to be talking about not only the educational records, but also about everything that you may have. When you have a child with special needs, there's a lot of different avenues and a lot of different tabs that we might need. So let's discuss the importance of being organized. Take a minute and think about the last Committee on Special Education or a preschool and special education meeting you attended. Were you able to share all the information you needed and wanted to? Was there something you forgot that afterwards you were like, oh, I wanted to talk about that? Because, right, we all sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed at these meetings, especially when our kids are younger. I know I used to always be a basket case when my daughter was younger. I had to stop that when she was old enough to start attending in 5th grade. But the importance of being organized, we really want to be prepared with our teachers, with therapists, with doctors, with different agencies, and all the school personnel. A lot of these professionals will look at us for the answers to pertinent questions about our children, right? Because we are the expert on our kids. And if you don't take anything else away from this training tonight, I want you to take away that you are the expert on your child. And always remember that. But documenting allows us to have all that information easily at hand. We can keep track of what is working and what isn't working. We want to plan. We want to be able to identify goals. Keeping all that documentation can help us answer the questions that, might be at the top of our head, but also as well as the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We want to advocate. I have already mentioned about advocating. We are our child's best advocate because we know them best. We're the one constant in their life. And we want to teach our kids how to advocate for themselves. So keeping this vital information will be able to help our children get the services that they need. We want to have all that information in a safe place and at our fingertips. When we share information with schools, with outside agencies, with medical professionals, a binder is a really good place to keep all the extra paperwork that a lot of times comes with having a child with a disability. When we're organized, it makes it easier for us to put together and refer to all that important information regarding our child. This makes us better able to advocate for our child's needs. Storing the information in this form in a binder with dividers will keep that information safe and easy to locate when you need it. You can begin to think of what you might need to keep in your child's binder. Like, start thinking about it as we're going through this training tonight. What I also have personally is I have things in the cloud, I have things on a flash drive, and I have a binder. I have a binder of everything that's current, and then when things aren't current anymore, I put things in the cloud and put them on flash drives. I have multiple flash drives. If I opened my desk drawer now, you would see a whole bunch of them. But that's just a way to keep all the information safe. There's a lot of great free scanner apps out there that you can take pictures of things and scan things and create PDFs, and then they store right into the app, or you can email them to yourself and keep them in your email. So just some things to start thinking about. One tip I always like to share, one thing I heard from a parent many years ago when I was at Parent Network was they were feeling overwhelmed at their prior Committee on Special Education meeting. So they went online to New York State Ed's website. And if you're ever unable to sleep and you have a lot of time on your hands and you want to read the Part 200 of the special ed regulations, print them up and read them. But she printed them all and put them in a binder and stuck little Post-its throughout the binder for different sections, having no idea what section she was putting the Post-its in. But it made her feel confident walking into that meeting, and it made the school realize she knew what she was talking about, or think she knew what she was talking about. That's a great tip. You want to walk into that meeting with confidence. You know your child's best. You know your child best. You know what they need. So we want you to be confident walking into that meeting. Another good tip is, you're going to want to share information with outside organizations. So sometimes making copies or keeping an extra copy of the current IEP in that binder, so you don't have to, struggle to get a copy made. Like, say if you're applying for the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities eligibility, and they're going to need a copy of that IEP, and maybe you won't have to wait for the school district to get a copy because you have that current copy right there, ready to send on to them. Just a couple of tips and tricks. And feel free, if you have ideas or thoughts or tips, please throw them in the chat for everybody to share. So we're going to talk about now, what should you keep? We're going to now get into the nuts and bolts. Evaluations and progress reports. You saw that in that first part of the video that we saw. The current medical information or the diagnostic medical information. Any important meetings and conversations with your child's school or agency, if they're in an agency-based program. Any information about recreation programs. Maybe you attend Developmental Disabilities Day, which is coming up in May 21st it is, at the Niagara Falls Conference Center. that is a great time at going to different agency fairs to see what programs are out there. We also do a really great transition program virtually in January every year. So be on the lookout for information about that. But it's a great way to learn about different programs that are out there. You may pick up a flyer and maybe your child's not age appropriate for it yet, but in a few years they will. Get that flyer for that or that program for that and stick it in your binder, because then when it comes time, you'll have it right there. Any information pertinent to your child's specific disability, information regarding benefits, transportation, community resources, and anything else that you feel is important. This is personalized. This is just giving you ideas. There is no perfect way to, keep yourself organized. We all organize ourselves in different ways. It's whatever works for you personally. So, in the chat, Amy, if she didn't put it in already, she will be putting like the chapters, the table of contents. These are the chapters that I've used and that understood.org uses and that we used when I was at the Parent Network. So this is kind of what I've stuck with because it's what I know, but this is not the be all and end all, like I said. The section 1 is that personal and contact information, including your child's photo. One of the handouts that we'll be sharing is from the Parent Network. It's called About My Child. It is a great documentation. It kind of follows a great document. It follows along with the PLEP statements in the individualized education program, or the IEP, and the PLEP stands for present levels of educational performance. So that's that, what does your child do great? What do they struggle with? What are their definite do's? What are their definite don'ts? But that's a great document to use. I used to use it a lot in elementary school and shared it with the cafeteria staff, with like the gym teacher, with the bus driver, so they could get to know my child other than just reading the IEP. This was a little bit more personalized. So I highly encourage you to use that. On Parent Network's website, there also is About Me, and that is for our older kids or our older young adults, that they write it up on their own or with your help. About me, my likes and dislikes and do's and don'ts. Section 2 will be medical information. Section 3, that education, excuse me, information. Section 4, information on benefits. 5, the employment vocational. 6, community services, including disability-specific services, information on housing, and information on transportation. Section 7, any other resources you come across. And then Section 8 is that other, kind of that catch-all category. We're going to talk about educational records and go through a few of those sections in a little more detail. But one of the handouts in there is this IEP binder checklist. There's also a communication log in there, talks about the evaluations, the IEP, report cards and progress notes, any sample work. It is really good for you as well as those working with your child to see that samples of the schoolwork, to see the progression that the child has made, or in some instances, it could be the regression, which could help. You could say, look, my child was doing this in September, and now, they're doing this in January. They're not keeping up to where they are. What's going on that is causing them to regress? Maybe it's a new accommodation or modification that needs to be added to the IEP, which you'll discuss during the Committee on Special Education meeting. Any report cards or progress notes that you get. Behavior. Have they had a functional behavioral assessment or an FBA? Is there a behavior intervention plan, or a BIP is the acronym? We talk in alphabet soup. Parent Network also has on their website. I talk about them a lot because they are near and dear to my heart and really helped me learn so much to help my daughter. They have an acronym, a disability related acronym list on their website. And had I thought of it, I would have put it in the group of handouts. But now let's talk about educational records. But before I do that, I want to look and see if I'm missing anything, if anything's been happening in the chat that I need to look. Yep, that's great. You created a folder on your computer to store. That's awesome. That's great. So now we're going to talk about educational records. So what goes in this section? And you saw a little bit about that. But like I said, the current IEP or 504 plan, keeping the last IEP or 504 for each, school year, Evaluations that have been done. You want to keep all evaluations. And like I said, they don't all have to stay in that binder. You can put them in a folder on your computer or in the cloud or on a flash drive, whatever works for you, the older ones, but keep all of them. I mentioned that FBA, or that functional behavioral assessment. All assessments that have been done, you want to keep. The most current BIP, or behavior intervention plan, the last one at the end of the year, you want to keep that. Those report cards or progress reports, keeping the last one at the end of the year, because we all know those are cumulative. So, the quarter one is going to be on quarter three's, current report card. So that quarter one and quarter two grades and notes will be there. Any meeting notices that you get, if you remember, they talk about it at the beginning of your meeting and want to give you a copy. Like they said, that's less paperwork you have to take home with you. If you have that copy right in your binder that you are bringing with you to that meeting at school. Any discipline records, if you happen to have those, keep those. When they do graduate or exit school with their credential, you want to keep that, right? We want to frame that. We want to make extra copies of that. Any awards or scholarships that they might have received in school. That's all stuff that is really great to look back on for you, but as well as for your child to see their accomplishments. And when kids are in middle school or high school, depending the route they're planning on taking when they exit, you're going to need to access this information, as well as when they're getting ready to transition out of high school. And we all know now it could be up till 21 and in some districts 22. If they're going on to secondary school or they're working with Access VR, you're going to need this information more than you can imagine. Trust me. Knowing right where it is will make your life so much easier. There are still some, I look back and I thank God I had done a binder training many years ago. We were going for a post-adoption subsidy for my daughter, who was diagnosed with her disabilities after we finalized the adoption. And when she was 12, we adopted her at 4 weeks of age. When she was 12, we found out about this post-adoption subsidy that she was entitled to because she was diagnosed with a disability after the finalization of the adoption. When I tell you I needed every evaluation and assessment ever done, I mean, I needed the evaluations from earlier intervention when she was 6 months old. Thank God I kept everything. I had everything that they needed, and it was a quick turnaround that they wanted. And I was just grateful that I had it. So you never know what you're going to need or when you're going to need it. I also have a friend who has a 30-year-old son who is just now, after my hounding her, applying for the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities for him. And she also has a binder for him and has had it for his whole life. So you never know what you're going to need or when you're going to need it. So just, making sure you're staying on top of things and keeping things organized is going to be your best bet. Now, another one of the section is a benefits information section. So what goes in this section? Could be the contact information for a benefits advisor you might be working with. Correspondence to and from that benefits advisor. There might be a benefits analysis or a plan put in place. Any correspondence from Social Security. Any correspondence from Medicaid, right? We all know you have to renew that every year. Keep the last renewal. I found years ago keeping the last renewal, that paperwork that I did. So then because a year goes by, and with COVID, it's been 3 or 4 years since any of us have done our renewals. You may forget, what you filled out or what you put with it or what documents you included with it. So keeping the copies of the last one is really a good tip. That Medicaid card number, keeping that in the benefits information. Any information on SNAP or on WIC, on Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or SNAP, which is, formerly known as food stamps. Information on TANF, or Temporary Assistance for Needed Families. Housing Energy Assistance Programs, HEAP. Housing subsidy information, earned income tax credit information, income tax forms. Those are all things that you are going to want to keep in that benefits information. Anything anyone else can think of, feel free to throw it in the chat. And know that if you're applying for SSI, SSD for your child when they become an adult, 9 times out of 10, people are denied the first time. You hear that over and over. There's some different agencies out there that do help with the appeals process. I know mental health advocates of Western New York, as long as there is a mental health diagnosis as well, as long as there's a multiple disability there, multiple diagnoses, they will help with the appeal for free. So reach out to people, ask around. There's people who will help you with all of that. I always like to mention that there. Now we have a community services section, and this is kind of like a catch-all section. Disability specific services. You may have, if your child already has that OPWDD or Office for Persons with Developmental Disabilities eligibility, you could have a tab for family support services for your region, whether it's the East or the West. For what all those services are. Those are disability specific services. Information on OPWDD, which is the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, OMH, Office of Mental Health, or the DOL, the Department of Labor. Information on that Medicaid waiver. Housing rental information, information about leasing, subsidized housing information on transportation, on mobility training. The NFTA in the areas that have that, they do, and I know and the independent living centers help with this. They do mobility training to help people learn how to ride the NFTA bus, or to learn all about paratransit. It's a process, and it's a big learning curve for young adults learning to use paratransit. My girlfriend that I mentioned with the 30-year-old son, he takes paratransit to and from work. It's taken him a long time to get to the point where he is able to make those appointments himself. And he knows he's got to give like a 2 or 3 hour window. He may get to work really early. If it's going to be late in the day that he's getting out, typically another ride is arranged, but it's a process and it's a big learning curve for people. Information on neighborhood or community services. What are the recreation programs in your area? What adaptive programs are out there? There's Best Buddies, there's Gigi's Playhouse, there's Special Olympics, there's Saba. There's so many different great recreation programs, whether your child likes to dance or to ice skate. If there's information about therapeutic horseback riding, what's in your area? What do you think your child would like to do? Any leisure activity information? What about information about camps? And different camps that are available and the cost. And if you have OPWDD eligibility, is it something that you can apply for family reimbursement for that program? Just all of that information and all of those things to be thinking about. Really important information about protection and advocacy. Really, what about the Self-Advocates of New York State, or SANIs, or the Center for Self-Advocacy? As our children become young adults and adults, we want them to advocate and to learn about being an advocate. And who better to learn from than other self-advocates out there? What about community education programs? Is there a program at the high school that they might want to take at night? Is there an arts class or a painting class? All kinds of different programs are out there and available for our kids and for our loved ones and the people we may work with. So, really, the options are limitless. There's so many different programs in New York State. I'm sure most of you know, we are really lucky that we have so many great resources and programs in our area. A lot of other states aren't as lucky. Yes, there are wait lists. We understand there are wait lists, and unfortunately, COVID did not help that. But kind of trying to gauge what your child is interested in, talking to them, learning from them, knowing their likes and dislikes. Again, remember, you're the expert on them. Getting on wait lists as soon as possible is really crucial if you think it's something your child might be interested in doing next year. So what's next? This training, I used to always do it in person. And now I kind of want to open this up for discussion. I want you to be thinking about what's the first step you'll take to start getting organized. Let's start thinking about that. Do you see any roadblocks? And if so, what roadblocks do you see? And what is a great tip that you have for other families that you've used in the past or you've thought of? I'm going to open up the chat and feel free to unmute yourself if you're able to in this format. I think you can. Yeah, Michelle, you agreed. I'm sure that that has to do with the Medicaid. Keeping past copies are helpful in filling out those forms, right? I like was page by page filling out my Medicaid research this year. So who wants to share what the first step is that they're going to take to start getting organized? Looking for all the papers, yeah. Yep, right. I know years ago, I've been to this training and taught this training many years ago where people came with like a file box filled with all their documents, and we would create a binder together kind of in a group. That was good and bad. If your organization style wasn't the same as my organization style, how does that work? So we stopped doing it that way, and then we would provide binders years ago. But now everybody's choices and options are different. Everybody's preferences are different. Getting a binder. Yep. Request the IFSP. Absolutely. Yep. Put out the checklist and start pulling those papers. The communication log is really important. I like that, also keeping track of after your meeting. One thing I always do, and I keep keep that paper trail is kind of a memo of understanding when you're leaving your meeting, and then printing that email that you send and putting it in your binder of, so this was a great meeting, thank you, for taking the time to meet with me today, kind of doing a little bit of that, playing really nice in the sandbox with the team, but making sure that what you left that meeting understanding is what they left that meeting understanding. It's really important, kind of making sure we're all on the same page. Yep, getting all the original evaluations in one place, right? You would just see me, my head was spinning when I found out I needed my initial early intervention like evaluation. My husband was like, "Oh, there's no way you have that." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, I do." And it was one of those, it's around here somewhere because I had the EI stuff all separate. I still have EI paperwork in a binder. So Linda, you've used notebooks for all meetings and conversations with date and check off? Yes, ma'am. That's it. Who did you speak to? When you're delivering your signed copies, you know how they send you those you have to sign for any testing? And now it's all done electronically. I print it personally and I take it to the pupil services office and make them give me basically a receipt that they received it. So there's no confusion. There's no question that they received it. So Michelle, I just recently helped my son apply to a transition program post high school, and I requested his IEPs and avails from the school. That's awesome. Great stuff, great ideas. And Barb getting all the original evaluations. Yeah. What roadblocks do you see? And feel free to keep putting the first step you're going to take in the chat. If any, you may not see any roadblocks. It's just really right. What could be a roadblock? Finding the time in the day. That's a roadblock for me. Yeah. Yep, that can be a problem, not being able to get the copies from your district or your doctor or things like that. If your child's older, um, the district may only keep records till the child's 26 or 27, and you may not be able to get old records. That's absolutely a possibility. And if it was years ago, you're not going to have it in email. You were mailed a snail mail copy of it. Yeah, yeah, keeping current is tough. It really is tough, but that's why it is good that with report cards and progress reports that they're cumulative, that they're for the whole year. So you can take the old one out. Michelle, do you need to keep everything? That's why I say, like with the IEP, you're going to want to keep it. If you have not applied for the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities yet, and it's something that you think you might be a fit for, and it's something you want to talk offline about, you can email me. If you're in my territory or Amy's territory, we'd be happy to reach out to you to talk about it, to see, kind of do like a case study on your child. They will want multiple psychologicals if they're available. The old IEPs, the last one for each year, you don't need to keep, like if you modified it, my daughter's meeting is in December. I then get rid of that old one and I keep the current one that I get. I don't keep the drafts after I've compared them to the final one I get. Read your IEPs, families. That's a huge thing. The IEP is a legal, living, breathing document. And, just remember that you want to make sure it's accurate because it is a legal document. And I started doing that years ago, even before, well, I was pretty new to Parent Network when we got the IEP for my daughter, and even the attendee list was incorrect. So then I took the highlighter out and I started going through it. So really make sure that it's accurate. That's awesome, Michelle. That's great. That's great to hear that your son is eligible. So start learning about all those programs that are out there. If you're in Western New York and you're able to attend DD Day or Developmental Disabilities Day, I highly attend it. I recommend it. It's a great, huge vendor fair. You can learn about so many great programs at it. So keep putting your tips in there. I want to put my contact information up here. I know Amy did put my email already in the chat. Amy, if you would put your email in the chat in case they're in your area and have any questions specific to eligibility, Amy will be happy to help you. After this session, if you want to share this with any families, this recording, for this recording and other webinars will be on our website at this QR code, personcenteredservices.com/category/webinars/. We have past sessions. We did this is part of our engagement series. So this is part 1 of this quarterly training that we're doing. And, we did one back in, I want to say it was October, on recognizing domestic and sexual violence. That recording is on there. We do a what is health home care coordination. We do it for, Amy and I do it for professionals. We do it for families of kids birth to 5, and we do it for families for school-aged kids. We want you to connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on X, formerly Twitter. There's a lot of great information on where we're constantly sharing information. And we really appreciate your feedback. So if you wouldn't mind taking the time, scanning the QR code to share your thoughts, that would be really, really great. Our next engagement series will be in June, and it is on, I'm just looking it up here. I'm pulling it up. I want to say it's June 26th, but I want to be sure. Nope, it is June 20th. Thursday, June 20th, we are having someone from New York Able come and present on Able accounts. So be on the lookout for that. Amy, if you could put that new save the date in the chat, that would be really great. The new save the date for the engagement series. We are then doing one on supported decision-making as an alternative to guardianship in September. And then we are doing one on multiple diagnoses in December. We, in the fall, Amy and I will be doing many sessions on, those trainings I mentioned. We do regional webinars for professionals, for the birth to 5 families, and for the school age families. I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point so I can open up my other box a little bit larger here. So that's Amy's. And if you remember, Amy covers the Eastern 10 counties. I cover the Western 8 counties. Thank you so much for attending. I'm giving you 20 minutes back in your life. I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to spend it with us. This was not meant to be a 2-hour training. This is just giving you tips and tricks and kind of to get you start thinking about things. If you have questions, please reach out to Amy or I. We are here to help you. If you have questions specifically about Binder, reach out, check out understood.org. That is a great website with a lot of great information. And you can just in the search bar type in the topic. If it's learning disabilities, everything about learning disabilities, there's handouts, there's videos, there's all kinds of resources on there. And that About My Child document, or if you need the About Me if your child is older. Parent Network of Western New York does a lot of great, incredible trainings, as does Parent to Parent of New York State. great resources out there. If you're interested in a list of resources with links, Amy and I have them sharing information about the regional Facebook group that's out there for OPWDD. There's a self-direction Facebook group for self-directed services. So we have, based on our region, different resource lists with different agency information, and we'd be happy to share that with you. But thank you all for joining me, and have a great night.